Hello and welcome to this how-to video for parents on this beautiful snowy day. I am Karen Locke-Culp. I am a child development expert and a podcaster and an author. I run a website called WeTurnedOutOK.com, and there you can find a whole bunch of wonderful free resources like 267 episodes of the podcast and counting, and a couple of books that I've written for parents, particularly parents of young children, and also the coaching community that I run for when you need more help and more support. I wanted to talk today about how to handle when your child is being picked on or bullied. And I'm really thinking of basically two ways to handle this. One is sort of better for younger children, and one is better for slightly older children or even much older children. And we'll get into the different mindsets of why you might want to use one versus the other, particularly if your child is kind of right in the middle of younger or older. And so the first way that I think of when I think of like how to help if your child is being picked on, because you can't go fight their battles for them. We have to teach them how to fight their own battles. And that can, ironically, it actually isn't about fighting at all. It's about the exact opposite of that. So if you have a very young child, for maybe 5 or younger, and they're coming home saying that people were mean to them, or that they were, or teachers are noticing that they're just getting picked on. They're kids are not, some kids anyway, or kids in general, are not being kind to them. The way that we can work on that with younger children is we can help them remember these things called I messages. And an I message is basically when you say, I'm feeling this way. When you say those mean things, I feel hurt, I feel sad, I feel angry. And what two things are happening here. One is your child is telling how they feel, which means that they have to realize how they feel. So that's really good. Communicating it to the other person, and whether they hear it or not is a little bit less important. It's much more important that your child recognize and can say that, can verbalize that, because then they don't do the second thing, which is to lash out, to hit, to hurt themselves, to kind of hurt back. That's why I reference this is the exact opposite of fighting a battle, because it's not about that at all. So to be able to help your child understand their feelings and say them out loud is the first way to handle this. This works really well, especially for young kids, because we're teaching them to kind of have a culture of kindness rather than one of antagonism. And it can also help the other person. So if the person who was being mean didn't realize that they were being mean, like if they were saying something that to them sounded funny or something like that, we can help foster their empathy by saying, you know what, when you say that, it hurts my feelings. It makes me sad. That is really great, especially for kids, so I would say 5 and under, maybe 6 and under. But as you get towards the age 6, 7, 8 and on up, now we need to get into the second part of this, which is helping our kids recognize that their own feelings again, but not necessarily saying them. Instead, not defusing the situation by not reacting. So if somebody's being mean or picking on them, to help them say, I'm not going to play with you. I'm going to go play with somebody who's being kind. Because that completely takes all the attention off of the potential bully, off the person who's picking on them. And that's what really matters in this situation. Now, this came up because I have a coaching client whose daughter at age 6 is being picked on because of her religion, because of their chosen religion. And that is it feels a little thornier, because so kids will find, if a kid is bent on being mean because of their own insecurities, or because they just want somebody else to hurt worse than they hurt, I mean, those are reasons why kids might do that. You'd be hard pressed to find a better one than somebody's religion, particularly if it means that they wear something different, or kids are just great at highlighting differences and then being mean about them sometimes, depending on how they're feeling inside. And what was happening with this coaching client's 6-year-old daughter was that basically she was there was a lot of intolerance being thrown her way by her peers, and she did not know how to handle it. And so she, first of all, working in a situation where there's intolerance, recognizing that the child can't handle this on their own. It's not it, it's a bigger deal than some other kinds of being picked on, because of the cultural implications and because of the ways that other families are about different religions or different races or different you know differences, basically. And so if there's a culture of intolerance in a child's home, they're going to be more likely to go out and be mean to other people based on intolerance, because that's what's being fostered at home. And so for this 6-year-old, but I guess I wanted to explain all that, but then I wanted to come back to the idea that the solutions are, as far as the child is concerned, are the same. The parents around them hopefully are using this as a teachable moment for kids, in terms of like that differences are to be celebrated. They're not to be feared or worried about. Maybe it's a chance for teachers or other adults to get the antagonist's parents involved, because if it can be communicated, your child is saying these really insensitive, hurtful things, then maybe that can be changed at home. But from the child's perspective, it's the same thing, whether it's an intolerance or some other difference that's being highlighted or being picked on about, or they're being picked on about. And that is to teach them some coping skills, right? So the first one is, as I just said, to be able to say, that hurts my feelings. And the second one is to be able to say, I'm not going to play with you if you act like that, or when you act like that. And the child leaves that situation and goes and finds another situation to be in where people are kind. That's what I really wanted to highlight in here. There are these two ways to handle bullying or being picked on, and at the child's level. Now, for a 6-year-old, the first way could work really well sometimes, or the second way. And again, I think it's going to be a lot of kind of discussion and conversation and observation, if the teachers are able to observe how these interactions go down and when and where they usually are and stuff like that. But most important is to be able to teach our kids to understand their own feelings, to verbalize their feelings at first, and then to be able to understand them and say, I'm not going to hang out with you if that's how you're going to act. I'm going to go find somebody who's being kind, because that creates it restores the power back to where it belongs. In other words, with the child who's being picked on, and it takes that power away from the child who is wanting to do the picking on. They're going to have to either go find somebody else or change their ways. And so that's really what I wanted to highlight today. If you want to hear lots more about this and the answers to some other questions, I recently had on my podcast a veteran preschool teacher who's a special education teacher and a preschool teacher. I used to work with her for many years, and she's still in the preschool program where we worked together. Her name's Trisha Tomaso. The episode is episode number 267 of the show, and you can access it just by clicking the link in these notes or by going to WeTurnedOutOK.com/267. And as I said, we talk about a lot more besides this intolerance idea. We talk about how to find good childcare and how to cope with childcare when it's you've got several weeks or months left when it's not so great and you still have to deal with it. We talk about what happens if your child is filling up a pull-up every night or leaking through it. We talk about what happens when your child is throwing shoes on the bus and you need a way to help them even though you can't be there. There are solutions to these problems, and if you go and listen to that episode, you can find them out. All right. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you got something out of it, if you'd hit the like button, I'd really appreciate it. If you'd share it with a friend or into a parenting group that you belong to, where maybe somebody's having struggles with being picked on or bullying, that is much appreciated as well. And then finally, subscribe so that you never miss these. I do them every Thursday. Actually, I do them every Thursday, except we are now off. This is the last one until the 28th of March because life is getting in the way. So anyway, but subscribe to the channel, and then when I come back in March, you can get access to them right away. And again, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Bye bye.